They say smart women never fall for lies. But I did, and I fell hard. You see, I wasn't the kind of woman who needed saving. I had built a good life for myself. Before we began, could you quickly tell us in the comment, what city or country are you watching from? At just 31, I was the head of operations in procurement for one of the top retail chains in Atlanta. I handled million-dollar contracts, led board meetings, and trained teams on negotiation strategy. I was respected, powerful, and honestly, tired of being alone. Love had always taken a back seat to my career. But deep down, I still wanted the kind of love that swept you off your feet, the fairy tale kind. The kind where the man was strong, successful, and knew how to lead just as much as he knew how to love. So when I met Dr. Ethan Walker at a fundraising gala for a children's hospital, it felt like destiny in heels and red lipstick. He was standing by the chocolate fountain in a navy blue suit that hugged him perfectly. His eyes were warm and brown, his hair clean-cut, and his smile was confident without trying too hard. "May I get you a drink?" he asked, handing me a glass of champagne. "Sure," I said, smiling. "I'm Vanessa Brooks." "Dr. Ethan Walker," he said, extending his hand. "Cardiologist. I work with trauma patients at Atlanta Medical." Boom. Right there. That word, doctor. It hit me like a spark. A doctor. Educated. Respected. Well paid. It sounded too perfect to be true, and I was too enchanted to question it. "Nice to meet you, doctor," I said, raising my glass. He grinned. "You don't have to call me that. Ethan is fine." Over the next few weeks, Ethan swept me into a world I thought only existed in movies. Candlelight dinners. Roses delivered to my office. Surprise weekend getaways. Long conversations that made me laugh and feel seen. He admired my work, listened when I ranted about supply chain issues, and told me he respected women who had their own money and power. That melted me. Most men were either intimidated by my success or tried to compete with it. Not Ethan. He made me feel like I could be soft even while running an empire. He drove a sleek black Lexus, wore designer cologne, and always seemed to know the right thing to say. He told me being a doctor came with long nights and heavy responsibilities, but that he found peace when he was with me. I asked him once why he never invited me to the hospital or talked about specific cases. He smiled gently and said, "When I'm off the clock, I don't want to carry the weight of the job. With you, I just want to be Ethan, not the guy saving lives." I swallowed that answer like a warm drink on a cold day. It felt sweet enough to ignore the bitter aftertaste of doubt. My best friend, Carla, didn't buy it. "I'm happy for you, but something's not adding up," she said one afternoon over coffee. "You've been dating for almost 6 months, and you've never seen his place. Never been to the hospital. Never even met a coworker." I rolled my eyes. "He works nights. He's busy. Not everyone can clock out at 5 like we do." Carla raised a brow. "You're the head of ops. You know better than anyone, trust is built with facts, not flowers." I waved it off. "I know what I'm doing." But the truth was, I didn't. I was smitten. Caught up in the fairy tale. And honestly, I loved how it felt to walk into a room and say, "My fiancé is a doctor." It made me feel like I had it all, career, love, and the man every woman wanted. Ethan proposed on a rooftop at sunset, with a view of the skyline and a ring that sparkled like starlight. I said yes before he even finished the question. Our wedding was grand, roses and lace, jazz music under the moonlight, and glasses raised to a future full of promise. I looked into Ethan's eyes and truly believed I had made the best decision of my life. I was marrying a man who adored me, a doctor, no less. It all seemed too good to be anything but right. But looking back now, I wish I had asked more questions. Dug a little deeper. Looked past the shiny car and the sweet words. Because while I was falling in love with the dream, I didn't realize the dream was wearing a mask. And soon, that mask would slip. Love isn't just about how someone makes you feel. It's about who they really are when no one's looking. And the man I married wasn't who he claimed to be. I used to believe love meant giving without holding back. So I gave. I gave him my time. I gave him my heart. And slowly, I gave him my money without blinking, without asking, without suspecting. It started with little things. Just tiny pebbles in what would later become a landslide. "Baby," Ethan said one night, "I need to help a friend whose mom is sick. She's in the ICU, and the insurance won't cover everything. Can you loan me $2,000? I'll pay you back as soon as I get my hospital bonus." I didn't even flinch. I was head of operations, making great money. And this was my husband, the man who made me feel like the center of his world. Of course I'd help him. That's what wives do, right? "It's fine," I said, smiling as I opened my banking app. "You don't have to pay me back." He kissed my forehead and said, "I don't deserve you." Maybe he was right. But not in the way I thought. After that, the requests kept coming, always with stories that tugged at my heart. A colleague whose house burned down. A rare medical seminar he needed to attend. A surgical license renewal that was urgent. Broken down cars. Lost wallets. One thing after another. And I paid. Over and over again. Because Ethan was my husband. My doctor husband. The man who came home tired after long night shifts. The man who held me when I cried after a hard day. The man who whispered, "I love you, V," as he rubbed my back at night. How could I not trust him? He made me feel like his anchor. Like I was holding his world together. And God, I wanted to be needed. I wanted to be that woman, the one her husband turned to when the storms came. I didn't see that I was being used. Not once did I check where the money was going. Not once did I ask for receipts or evidence. That's how much I trusted him. That's how much I loved him. But love, when not returned with honesty, becomes a weapon. One evening, as I sat on our bed balancing vendor reports on my laptop, Ethan came into the room looking anxious. "What's wrong?" I asked. He ran a hand through his hair. "There's an issue with my hospital credentials. Some legal mix-up. They're saying I need to pay a fine to clear my record. If I don't, I could lose my license." My heart skipped. "Lose your license? Are you serious?" He nodded. "It's temporary. Just a $10,000 bond to settle the case. But we don't have time. I can't let them suspend me, Vanessa. I can't stop working." I didn't even think twice. I wired the money the next morning. Looking back, I wish I had looked into his eyes just a little longer that night. I might have seen it then, the flicker of guilt hiding behind his panic. But I didn't. Because when you love someone, your heart outruns your brain. And I was sprinting. Carla asked me once, "V, how much have you given Ethan since you married him?" I shrugged, like it didn't matter. "Maybe $30,000. Over the years." Her eyes widened. "And you never questioned him?" "Not even once." "No," I answered. "Why would I? He's my husband." That was my answer every time until it stopped making sense. I started noticing little things. He'd say he was on call, but then come home smelling like cologne and wine. He claimed he was exhausted from rounds at the hospital, but his hands were soft, too soft for someone scrubbing. Into surgeries. Still, I silenced my doubts. I buried them under dinner dates and pillow talk. Because admitting the truth meant facing the reality that I had married a stranger. And I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. One rainy afternoon, I walked into our home office to grab a flash drive. I was looking for a file on a company deal, but I accidentally opened a folder on Ethan's laptop. What I saw made my stomach twist. Emails. Dozens of them. Not from hospitals or medical representatives, but from agencies hiring live-in caregivers. Shift reports, pay stubs, and client notes signed by Ethan Walker, home health aide. Caregiver. Not doctor. I couldn't breathe. The air felt heavy, the walls too close. Every picture on the wall, every love letter he had written, now looked like a lie wrapped in ribbon. My hands shook as I closed the laptop. My heart pounded like a warning siren in my chest. I had been married for 5 years, to a man who didn't just lie once, but built an entire life out of lies. And I paid for it, literally and emotionally. Suddenly, everything we had shared felt poisoned. I thought of every dollar, every sleepless night worrying about him on fake night shifts, Every I love you whispered in the dark. My love had been real. His had been an illusion. But what hurt the most wasn't the money. It was the truth that I had been blindly loyal to a man who saw my heart as a bank account. And the saddest part, I still loved him. They say when a heart breaks, it doesn't make a sound. But that night, mine shattered loud enough to shake the heavens. I waited for him. Ethan walked through the front door around 6:30 p.m., whistling like the world was right. His uniform was clean, his hands empty, his smile, the same one that used to make me melt, now felt like glass against my skin. Hey, baby, he said, dropping his keys in the bowl by the door. You cooked something? I'm starving. I stood in the living room, laptop open, the screen still showing Ethan Walker, home health aide. My chest was tight, my throat dry, but my voice came out steady. Too steady. Where do you work, Ethan? He blinked. Smiled again. What do you mean? I swallowed hard. Don't lie. Not tonight. His face changed. Just for a second. His mouth twitched, his eyes flickered. Like a mask cracking at the corners. Still, he tried. I told you I'm at Atlanta Medical. Cardiovascular unit. Why are you asking? Stop it. I screamed. Please. Stop lying to me. The room echoed with silence. I picked up the laptop and turned it toward him. I know everything. You're not a doctor. You never were. You're a caregiver. You've been lying to me since the day we met. He froze. Not a blink. Not a breath. Just stood there, caught in the storm of his own making. Vanessa, he whispered. Don't, I said, backing away like he was fire. Don't call my name like you didn't ruin it. 5 years, Ethan. 5 years of lies. 5 years of taking my money, my trust, my love, and feeding me stories while you smiled like an angel. Tears burned down my cheeks, but I didn't care. My mascara ran, my hands trembled, but I needed the truth even if it broke every bone in my body. Why? I asked, my voice cracking. Why lie? Why pretend? Was I just some rich woman you needed to survive? No, he shouted, stepping closer. God, no. V, I swear I loved you. I still do. Then why? I whispered, choking on grief. Why deceive me? He ran his hands through his hair, his voice thick with emotion. Because I didn't think you'd love the real me. The man who bathes old people and changes their sheets for a living. I didn't think that version of me was enough for someone like you. My knees buckled, but I held myself up. You didn't even give me the chance to choose, I said, my voice like shattered glass. You stole that from me. You chose for me. You looked me in the eyes every day and gave me a fantasy while dragging me through hell. He came closer. I stepped back. Don't, I warned. If you love me, truly love me, don't come any closer. Ethan dropped to his knees. Right there on our living room floor, beneath the wedding photo we had framed 2 years ago. His face twisted in pain, his hands shaking like a man who had finally seen the monster in the mirror. I was scared, he cried. I was working night shifts at a senior care home. One day, I saw you at that gala, and you looked like everything I had ever wanted but never thought I deserved. You were smart, beautiful, powerful, and I panicked. I thought if I told you the truth, you'd laugh in my face. So I lied. I told myself I'd confess later. But the longer it went, the harder it became. I listened. I really listened. Not because I wanted to forgive, but because I needed to understand the storm that had just drowned my life. You could have told me, I whispered. I would have respected you more if you swept floors with integrity than if you saved lives in a lie. He wept. Grown man tears that shook his whole body. But something in me had already snapped. Some invisible thread, once strong and sacred, had broken. I walked into our bedroom, packed a small bag, just enough to leave with my dignity. As I zipped it shut, I saw the journal he gave me on our 2nd anniversary. The one he filled with love letters and dreams of growing old together. I picked it up. Then dropped it. Some dreams aren't worth remembering. As I walked past him, still on his knees, I didn't say goodbye. I just left. I didn't slam the door. I didn't scream. I let silence speak for me. Because sometimes, the most painful sound in the world isn't a shout, it's the sound of trust dying quietly in the middle of a beautiful home. They say healing begins the moment you walk away from what broke you. But what if you're carrying a part of what broke you inside of you? It had been 6 weeks since I left Ethan. 6 long, quiet, bitter weeks. I had moved into a temporary apartment, a small 2-bedroom space just outside the city. It wasn't home, it didn't smell like fresh coffee and shared laughter. It smelled like detachment. Like solitude and new beginnings that I didn't ask for. I stopped taking his calls. Blocked his number. Left his tear-stained letters unopened in a drawer I didn't dare open. Every time the doorbell rang or my phone vibrated, my heart would lurch. But I never looked back. I couldn't. I wouldn't. But there was one thing I couldn't escape. The nausea. It had started a week after I moved out. At first, I thought it was stress. My body was exhausted. I wasn't eating well. I was crying in between board meetings and skipping meals to avoid people asking, "Are you okay?" Then came the cravings. Then the dizziness. Then the missed period. I didn't want to believe it. I couldn't. Not now. Not like this. Still, I stood there, 2 lines on the test staring back at me, bold and undeniable. Pregnant. The word echoed through my bones like thunder. I sank to the floor of my bathroom, the cold tiles pressing against my skin, my arms wrapped around my knees. I wanted to scream. But the scream stayed trapped in my throat. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. I had walked away from Ethan to find myself, to breathe again. But now, I was carrying his child, a constant, growing reminder of the man who lied to me, who betrayed me in ways I still hadn't fully processed. And yet, this tiny heartbeat inside me had done nothing wrong. I closed my eyes and whispered to the ceiling, "Why now?" That night, I tossed and turned under the covers, holding my stomach like it could hear the war waging inside me. I didn't want to be a single mother. I had grown up watching my own mother raise 3 of us alone. I remembered the late nights she worked 2 jobs, the tears she cried quietly in her bedroom, the way she carried the world on her shoulders without a man to help her lift it. I swore I wouldn't live that story. I swore I'd marry a partner, a protector, a man who would stand beside me. But life, as always, had its own script. The next morning, I stood in front of the mirror, watching the woman I had become. Still successful. Still standing. But with eyes that looked a little more tired, and a heart that no longer knew what it meant to trust. "I don't need him," I whispered. "I can do this." But my reflection didn't clap. It didn't cheer me on. It just stared back, silently daring me to believe those words. And then I heard it, my mother's voice, somewhere deep in my memory. Being strong doesn't mean doing it alone. It means knowing when to ask for help. Was I being strong? Or just stubborn? By noon, I found myself standing outside Carla's door. She hugged me before I could say a word, and within minutes, I was curled up on her couch with a blanket over my knees and peppermint tea in my hands. "I'm pregnant," I said quietly. Her eyes widened. "Oh, V." I nodded, tears slipping down my cheeks. "I don't know what to do." She didn't say, "Keep it or tell him." She just held my hand. That's what real friends do. They sit in your storm without trying to change the weather. A few days later, I found myself writing a letter. Not to Ethan. To my unborn child. "I don't know what our future looks like, little one. But I promise you this, I will love you with every piece of me. I may not have gotten love right with your father, but I will never get it wrong with you." That letter changed something in me. It reminded me that life, even broken, twisted life, can still be beautiful. And though I still didn't know if I could ever forgive Ethan, I knew this for sure. I wouldn't let his lies define the kind of mother I would be. But deep down, I also knew that at some point, I would have to face him again. Not as the woman he lied to, but as the mother of his child. Some truths find their way to the surface even when you bury them in silence. It had been almost 2 months since I walked out of Ethan's life and discovered I was carrying a part of him with me. I hadn't planned to tell him. I convinced myself that he didn't deserve to know, not after everything. But deep inside, I also knew, this child deserved a father. Even if I never loved Ethan again, our baby deserved the full truth. So I sent a message. Simple, short. We need to talk. In person. Come by Saturday at 10 a.m. I didn't add anything more. On Saturday, I stood at the window with a hand over my still flat belly, heart racing. The knock came exactly at 10. He was always punctual. Even when everything else about him was fake, he had always been on time. When I opened the door, he stood there smaller than I remembered. Not in size, but in presence. Like guilt had eaten away at his confidence. "Hi," he said. I stepped aside and let him in. We sat across from each other, a glass coffee table between us like a fragile wall separating two hearts that once beat in sync. He looked around the room, eyes flickering over the pale curtains, the folded blankets, the faint scent of lavender. Then he looked at me. "You look tired," he said softly. "You look like you've been crying for weeks," I replied. He nodded. "I have." I inhaled deeply. "I didn't bring you here to talk about us. I brought you here because you need to know. I'm pregnant." His face fell. He didn't speak. For a moment, I thought he didn't even breathe. You're what?" he choked. "I'm carrying your child," I repeated, eyes locked on his. "And no, this isn't some trick or excuse to make you feel guilty. I'm not asking you for anything. But I had to tell you. Because this baby deserves a chance to be known and loved by both parents. Even if we're no longer together." Ethan covered his face with his hands. God. Tears slipped between his fingers. "I messed up so badly," he whispered. "I lost the best thing I ever had. And now, there's a child in the middle of the wreckage." I said nothing. He looked up. Do you hate me?" I stared at him for a long moment. "I hate what you did. I hate that I believed in a life that wasn't real. But hate you? No. I don't hate you, Ethan. I pity you." His shoulders sagged like he was carrying every lie he ever told. "I want to be in the baby's life," he said. "I don't know how, or what you'll allow, but I want to try. I need to try." "And what about the truth?" I asked, voice breaking. "Will you finally live in it? For this child? Will you be the kind of man who shows up, not with a title or a suit, but with honesty and consistency?" He looked at me, then really looked. "I will. No more masks. No more lies." For the first time, I believed him. But believing him didn't mean I was ready to go back. "I don't want to be married to you, Ethan," I said softly. "That chapter is closed. But we can write a new one for our child. One built on truth this time." He nodded slowly, tears still in his eyes. "I'll earn that page, Vanessa. Even if I have to write it in pieces." We sat in silence after that. No shouting. No dramatic gestures. Just two broken people choosing to be whole again for someone who had yet to be born. Before he left, Ethan knelt in front of me, not like the man who once proposed with a ring and a lie, but like a man kneeling before his consequence and his chance at redemption. He placed a gentle hand over my stomach. "Hey, little one. I know I messed up. But I promise. I'll be here. I'll show up. I'll love you right." And for the first time since that pregnancy test, I smiled. Not because everything was fixed, but because something real had finally begun. Life has a way of breaking you apart, just enough to help you find the pieces that truly matter. 3 months passed since I told Ethan about the baby. The shock faded. The pain softened. And something unexpected began to grow in its place, clarity. We didn't get back together. There were no magical reunions, no candlelit dinners, no fairy tale forgiveness. But there was honesty now. Finally. We sat down one final time, not as husband and wife, but as two people with a shared purpose. "I want to be present," Ethan said. "Doctor or caregiver, lies or truth, I'm ready to be the father our child deserves." I nodded slowly. "You can be in the baby's life, Ethan. You will be. But we're not going back to what we were. That part of our story is over." And just like that, we both understood. Some loves aren't meant to last forever. But some responsibilities are. And raising a child, loving them without limits, is one of them. So we made a choice. We would raise our child together, but from separate homes. No tension. No games. No pretending. Just commitment. We agreed on joint parenting schedules, prenatal appointments, and boundaries. Ethan began attending parenting classes, showing up with notebooks and questions, determined to do it right this time, not for me, but for our unborn child. Sometimes, he texts just to ask, "Did the baby kick today?" Sometimes, I respond with a photo from the ultrasound, captioned, "Your little fighter." And even though we share those moments from a distance, they matter. They matter because they're built on truth now, not illusion. I still remember the day I watched Ethan put together a baby crib in his new apartment. He stood there sweating and fumbling with screws, then looked at me and laughed. "I may not be a doctor," he said, "but I'm learning to be a dad." That moment broke me open. Not with sorrow, but with something new, peace. I'm not bitter anymore. I'm not angry. I'm wiser. Stronger. Softer in the places where I used to be sharp. I don't know what the future holds for me romantically, but I do know this. I will raise my child with love, with stability, and with truth. And Ethan will be right there, doing the same from his side of the street. No, we're not husband and wife. But we are parents. And that is a sacred bond. One built not on perfection, but on a decision to rise above the lies, the pain, and the past. Because sometimes, the bravest kind of love is the kind that lets go, while still holding on to what matters most. Tell us in comment what you would have done if you're in V's situation. Like this story and subscribe to Love and Betrayal for more captivating stories.